Hello everybody, welcome to Localite. I'm John Compton, and today I have a special guest with us from the Dells, Bev Eagy. She's the owner of ANZAC Tea Parlour, and they do catering and all kinds of interesting stuff, and we're going to find out about that. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Bev. Bev, thanks for coming on. It's nice to see you.
It's my pleasure, John.
Well, we really appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit about your shop. Your shop is located in a historic home. Is that correct?
It's called the Ben Snipes home. He's a famous cowboy. He built this house in 1865 for his 16-year-old bride, Mary Parrott.
Mary Parrott?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I might be pronouncing it wrong, but anyway, she was young and quite beautiful. There's a little picture of her. And for people that love cowboys, I mean, there's Ben Snipes, people that come from all over the country to see Ben Snipes' mansion in the Dalles, and I go, this is it. And they're kind of, oh, okay. But in 1865, it was a mansion.
Uh-huh.
And he's well known. There's a museum in Sunnyside for Ben Snipes. But he was the richest man in America for a while. It was one of those,
Really?
the richest and the poorest, that kind of thing. But he was a cattle king, the cattle king of the Northwest. And he took cattle up to Canada. It's an amazing sort of story. I don't know how he'd feel about his house being a tea parlor now.
Yeah.
But it's a charming little house with lots of history for the Dalles.
And is it on the actual historical registry and all of that?
It's on the state registry.
Okay.
I don't think it's the national. There's a barn behind that's on the national registry.
Really?
So his barn that's
part
original
of
to
your...
the. Well, I've got my sights on it. My poor husband Alan's like, oh no, but it's Lundell's Plumbing is in the barn behind us. But go figure.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But there's just so much history in this town.
Yeah, there's a lot of history in this town. Now, was the barn part of what is now your tea parlor at one time, or are they completely separate?
Completely separate. It's just another property just behind us. It's just, originally it would have been Ben's barn, not the main barn, just, I think everyone had a barn, probably his horse and buggy barn or something. His cattle were just spread all over the place. So.
Yeah. Well, now, if you were to get that, what would you do with it?
Well, I would figure it out. That's what I've always done. I just kind of, just keep reinventing myself. And it just has lots of potential.
Yeah.
Might just, but don't tell anyone. My husband, I mean, he's up for sainthood now with the things I'm doing. We live above a tea parlor.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me a bit, though, about some of the things that you do at the tea parlor. And, when people think tea parlor, it seems pretty straightforward that there's going to be tea, but...
Well, in Australia, tea is like a multitasking word. Tea is like having a snack, tea is having dinner, tea can be lunch, tea can even be drinking tea. And that's kind of what it is. It's a restaurant. It's like a full... it's more of a lunch restaurant because we're just open from 11 to 4, although we do... If someone says, I would like dinner for 20 people, I'll say what time, and I'll open. And we often do things like that, but mostly it's like a lunch restaurant. But we do tea food, all kinds of little tea sandwiches and all the scones and little yummy things that you would have with tea in Australia. And we also have meat pies and sausage rolls and all kinds of heartier fare. In Australia, it would be half men coming into a tea parlor. Now, in the Dalles, and I'm working on this, it's like there'll be a man or two in there, and they look at each other, and they'll go, "What are you in for? Or what do you do?" But if they were very, very clever, they'd be bringing their wives and sweethearts there all the time because huge rewards for a man to come in with their wife. It's like a great little romantic lunch.
Oh, gotcha.
Women love the tea parlor, and you know what? When men come in, they realize that the food is wonderful. And the portions are huge. I mean, this is the Pacific Northwest, for crying out loud. We're not going to get a wimpy little tiny serve. And we do, Australian fare, which is similar to here. Just nice. A meat pie is like a solid meat pie with lots of steak in there, and it's you need to come in, and then you'll know what I'm talking about.
I'll have to, I noticed you brought us some little treats
did.
I tried not to get into before the show, so got to keep my teeth clean, but I'm going to hit those up as soon as we're done. Now, you said scone, or...
Well...
that's a scone to me, is it?
Well, in America, they say scone, and it's perfectly correct because it's spelled scone by golly. That's But in Ireland, Scotland, England, Australia, they say scone.
Scone.
And since I lived in Sydney for 20 years, and that's where I learned how to bake scones, and my kids are Australian, and they're like, call it a scone, and the ANZAC biscuit, the biscuit is cookie. And they don't call it an ANZAC cookie. They want me to keep some things Australian, and so I am. I'm saying scone, and people think I'm saying it wrong, but I'm just, keeping that because I'm doing a Australian style, so I want to keep it that way.
Right.
So
that's actually that's the authentic way to say it.
Well, they're both correct. If someone orders, 2 dozen scones, I'll say yes, ma'am. And I'm not going to,
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Australia. I want to talk to you about that, but before we do, we got to take a quick break. All right. Well, you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.